All right, guys, our guest joining us today has been in love with horses his entire life. As a kid, horses showed him how to love and how to be a steward to the vulnerable. He turned professional at 13 and felt he knew exactly where his life was going. But as the years went on and the pressures to succeed and win increased, he found it hard to hold on to the reasons he started in the first place. He began to see what others in the horse business would do to win. He started to see what he did to win, and it weighed heavily on his conscience. After some very difficult introspection, he made the most difficult decision of his life, deciding to retire. After leaving the horse business, he parlayed his new skills into work as a director of content, working closely with CEOs to develop and execute media strategies. He loved it, but began to notice a familiar pattern. When faced with the choice between acquiring more power or elevating one's values, people almost always chose to acquire more power. So he gathered all of his life experience and skills in media, philosophy, horses, and human nature to develop Anima Equine, his unique method of personal development for horses and people. Through listening, meditation, groundwork, introspection, and other modalities, he helps both horses and horse people to improve performance and connection. So with that, love to welcome to the show today, Dan Bratman. Thanks for joining us today, Dan.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. That's quite a bio, actually.
Thanks for writing it.
When I hear you say it, there's a few things out of context, but it's been a bit of a ride, so I guess that's understandable.
And it sounds like quite a ride, and we'd love to get, I guess, into the weeds of it, as it were. Yeah. So, we've heard about some, I guess, significant transitions in your life, Dan.
Yeah.
And a very wide-ranging timeline. But what we'd love to do is invite you to share with us your origin story. Go back as far as you'd like to. We'd love to hear about how you've come to be where you are today. So the floor is yours.
That's amazing, Shaun. I love that how you say it's a wide-ranging timeline, which is another way to say that I'm old. So I'm going to tell people that in the future. I'm not old, I just have a very wide-ranging timeline. I mean, where to begin? It's I have been in love with horses all my life, and that's been a guiding force, although sometimes I didn't know it. Maybe that's a good way to start. I remember seeing a photograph of my mother around horses when she was maybe like 13, and I think I was 8 years old. And I just became totally obsessed. It couldn't really be explained. My mother was not really that into horses. My family, we lived in the suburbs. My father's a psychologist that works for New York State. There was no indications that I was destined to the sport of kings. There was no reason that it should have happened. But I just could not stop thinking about horses. And, I didn't grow up in the environment where, I could say, Daddy, I want a pony. It wasn't like that. Like we were, just struggling to get by. But at one point, my parents saved up a bunch of money and they bought a package of 10 lessons. And for my 9th birthday, they bought me a pair of like rubber boots and sent me out to the local recreation hall where I was piled into a van, and they drove me out to the barn. And I was so excited. I was like, I remember walking down the street in my new rubber boots and just thinking like, this is exactly what I want. I'm so excited. So I got there, and I remember, if I'm getting too in the weeds here, stop me, guys. But I do remember like walking into the barn and feeling like it's a very sensual experience. There's like a lot of senses that are involved. There's like the smell that some people don't like, but I really like the smell of horse poop and horses in general, and like the colors and like the sounds of like horses eating. And I was just entranced. I was hypnotized by the whole thing, and I don't know, there's another way to say it, but like I remember at the end of my first lesson that the trainer came up to me and said, "How long have you been riding?" And I said, "About an hour," and she said, "No, like how many times have you been riding?" And I said, "This is my first time." So like I got validation from adults. I got this like like crazy, like it's almost like has like an ASMR effect on me, where it just lights my brain up when I hear and smell like all these, all these things. So I pretty much right away knew that this is what I was going to do. It wasn't a trick for me, like right away I was like, I want nothing else. Like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I did. I did for a long time, but I sort of connected with some trainers along the way who saw that I had some ability. And so I started getting all this like free stuff. I started getting, more validation from adults, and I was competing and winning. And there were so many wonderful, like kind of self-esteem building elements to it, I think, that were really exciting for me. But throughout that, I just remember, like literally being in love with horses. I remember literally like having a feeling in my heart when I was around them. And that I didn't get anywhere else. That it fed me in a way that nothing else ever has, honestly. And it was like a secret between the horses and I that I could, that we were having conversations. This is what it felt like to me, that we were talking, And it's funny because just today I was working with a horse. I guess it's yesterday. I was working with a horse, and I just, it was a beautiful moment. I was just standing across from him, and we were sort of connecting in a non-verbal way. And he was starting to fall asleep and sort of twitch, which is a real sign of trust. And my heart was just blowing up. It hasn't changed. And I've tried to get away from horses. I've tried to avoid my calling on many occasions, and it chases me down every time. So I stopped running. Pretty much.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And, even for you to end it right there in terms of like trying to run away from your calling, so to speak, like it's such a, like, it's almost like an inverse, like narrative and story that many people may have, experienced in their lives. Like, I think about my own journey and probably many others who walk the same sort of path. You're sort of numb and lifeless up until a point where you start to attune yourself to, some sort of experience that lights you up, as you describe, in a sensory way. And you had that at such a young age. And, we're all now trying to find, what we, quote unquote, call our calling or our passion. And again, like what sticks out to me in your story is that it's so distinct for you at such a young age that you remember, and it's evident that you remember it with vibrancy, because you describe it in such a way, right? The feeling that you hold in your heart that still holds true to today. Like, you mentioned that, like, that there wasn't much of a connection or any inclination that this was the road that you were going down. But do you, like, upon reflection for yourself, have you ever thought about what, how you might have stumbled upon, having this, like, such a strong affinity towards, even like that sensory awareness at such a young age?
That's a great question, actually. I think, and I'm, my parents are going to hear this, so I'm going to be delicate, but I think I grew up in a house where, like, it was just really quiet. It was really quiet. And there was always this underlying theme, sorry, mom and dad, that there was a ton of emotionality that just wasn't really discussed or, I don't want to say confronted, but you just acknowledged, maybe.
Yeah.
And I just thought that I was a freak because I felt a lot, and I think, I don't know if it was like an intuitive thing that drew me to horses, but as soon as I saw them and, like, was there physically with horses, I knew that I could express it with them. Like, I could express those emotions and that can, and like feel that way around them, and they wouldn't think that I was doing something bad.
Yeah.
Or tell me to stop or whatever, they liked it.
Amazing.
And all through my life, that's been thematic. Sorry to interrupt, but like, it's always been, like, in the tougher times of my life where I say, like, wow, like, they just, can I swear on this podcast? Is that okay?
Of course, you can say whatever you want, mate.
They fucking saved me again, man. Like again, they fucking saved me. It's just, it blows my mind. And like you had mentioned, Shaun, like the transitions, and we'll probably get to that at some point, but they just popped up at the right times, you know, always. And yeah, I did my best. You know, I think it's interesting what you're saying, Leslie, too. Like, especially nowadays when people have less opportunity for distraction and perhaps a lot of time in their hands, and maybe even needing a change in career. Like a lot of people are like wondering, or I hope they're wondering, like, what lights me up? Like, what do I love? You know, when I talk to clients on the phone, that's a question I'd love to ask. Like, what do you love? Because you should be doing it all the time, you know, if you can. It makes you a different person, like a better person.
And you've mentioned they saved you, you know, which Lucy, there was something you needed saving from, or you felt you needed saving from. So do you care to delve down that path for us?
Yeah, there we go. It's pretty much entirely from myself. I think I would say that probably my greatest gift and the thing that is my greatest struggle is my emotionality. You know, like I love it, and it allows me to connect with so many kinds of people in such a deep way, and with horses in a way that I think is really unique. But it also like it's hard. It's hard to feel so much sometimes. Like I'm 52 years old, and I'm like, I think this pandemic has really shown me how to manage myself in a way that better than I ever have before. I'm like kind of proud of that. But the horses would always kind of be there when I was caught up in some sort of maelstrom of emotionality or confusion or whatever. You know, the horses, here's the thing about horses. They're so simple. They only care about a couple of things. They want to know that they're safe. They want to know that they can eat, and they want to know if they're going to be able to fuck, and if they're where they are in the herd, like where they are in the hierarchy. It's all they care about. So you may or may not fit into those things, but if you do, like if your intent is to connect with them, and I'd love to talk more about this in a minute, but like to connect with horses, they only really acknowledge you if you're like truly authentic. So like when I'm working with people and horses, for example, if I see that somebody's nervous around horses and I say, how are you feeling? And they're like, I feel great. It's so good to be around horses. And I know they're not really being sincere about that. The horse won't approach them. The horse won't really interact with them very much. And a lot of times the way that the person will try to interact with that horse won't be successful. Like they won't achieve the things that they're hoping to. But as soon as you become authentic, as soon as you sort of drop into your body and allow yourself to feel what's really going on, they love that. Even if it's terrible, even if you're screaming and angry, they will watch you do it, you know. But if you're lying to yourself, they'll just walk away. They have no interest. So in that way, they've given me like a safe space to feel anything. And until I met my current girlfriend, I don't think I had felt that with anybody before. So,
wow, it's like what you're explaining is that they're like consent congruence.
Exactly. That's exactly what. In fact, there's. Are you guys familiar with HeartMath? Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Yep.
HeartMath is it's a meditation technique. I'm certified in teaching the meditation, but what I found is most interesting to me is that there's two things that I learned from HeartMath. One is that there has always been a hypothesis that when a trainer walks into a ring with a horse, that the trainer's skills will sort of change the internal state of the horse. You know, you can build trust or relaxation or something like that. HeartMath did a study where they put these monitors on trainers and horses to monitor their specifically their heart rate variability, which is what HeartMath is largely about. And what they found instead was that the trainer changed to be in rapport with the horse, as opposed to the horse being in rapport with the trainer. Mm. So when I read that, it blew my mind because that had been my experience, but I hadn't been able to describe it before. So for example, horses have a gigantic heart, literally and figuratively. And the result is that they like you can feel the energy of their heartbeat. if you get super quiet and you're authentic and you drop in. And even if you don't, I think it just affects you anyways. I think even if you don't know how to do that stuff, I think being around horses changes your heart rate variability, according to the study. And I found that to be amazing. So like today, when I felt my heart exploding with this horse, I thanked him. I'm helping him, and I know he's got fears, and I'm fixing some training issues that he has, but he's helping me way more.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like, look, this whole discussion around HeartMath and how that particular study sees the synchronicity between the horse and the human. It's a wonderful thing. Like I just think about, like, I have not sort of read much about it from a human and horse perspective. Of course, I know more about it from just a human on human level, and how that sort of can sort of spread. And I've heard those stories about those thousands of people who try to sink in deep meditation, and then the various positive things that permeate from those sorts of activities. But it's amazing how it's the horse that was the animal subject that was utilized, right? And I sort of see, like, as I'm like listening to you describe your relationship with them and the necessary authenticity when interacting with them, I would say it's almost like this very transparent and objective mirror that they provide, any human being when you do interact with them. Am I right in saying that?
You're absolutely right in saying that. In fact, my horseman hero, who I feel is kind of like the Jimi Hendrix of horse training, is his name is Buck Bratman. And he says, one of my favorite quotes, he says, a horse is a mirror to your soul. And sometimes you may not like what you see, I like to say the first part before people write the check, and the second part after, because, it's not always easy. Sometimes it's like, for example, if someone owns a horse and they have developed this relationship with this horse, but unknowingly they've also installed some some fear and lack of trust through whatever that is. Like, people love their horses so much, and I of course encourage that. It's like a dog for them. And when you say, hey, look, like this may be the result of your actions, it's hard to look at. You really do have to look at yourself and say, like, it's happened many times. I've walked into a ring with a horse feeling great, and the horse is not responding to me, and I'm thinking, like, I am probably wrong. Like, I'm going to trust the horse before I kind of defend my own evaluation, because they have no ulterior motive. I have a lot of reasons to want to be good. They don't care. As long as they're eating, they're happy and eating and safe.
And that's such an interesting, and I'd love to follow that thread down a little bit more. Sorry, Shaun, to interrupt me.
All good.
So, like, I myself, I'm sort of a new dog dad. I've only had a dog for like a couple of years now. It's probably like the first time that I've owned it myself and had that responsibility myself with my wife. And upon getting him, it's a greyhound, and I got him, so probably like 3 months after I got him, I had already written a piece about what it had taught me, what my dog had taught me about myself. And I love the way that you sort of frame it, with the sense that the animal doesn't have ulterior motive, right? Like, humans are the only ones who have such complexities that sit on top of our, instinct, our animal instinct. So talk to us a little bit more about that, and how we can sort of, how animals can be used in that way, like, especially for horses, for yourself, in revealing much more about yourself, and, like, say, how you help your clients in that way.
Yeah, that's a great it's a topic I'd love to talk about, because from early on, it became clear to me that if I had a student walk into a ring with a horse, that if I asked them how their horse is doing that day, that I'm going to get like a pretty good indication of how they're feeling, the person is feeling. And I can even explain projection in detail, and they'll be like, oh yeah, okay. And then I'll be like, so how's your horse feeling today? And it still works. That's the beauty of projection, is that even awareness of it doesn't often affect it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorite things to do that I hope very much to do again once things open up is work with like C-suites, for example, like groups of leaders, especially if they tend to work together already, because the dynamic of the herd and the dynamic of the team is often like very similar. So for example, I'll put if I have a facility where it's possible, I'll put a bunch of horses together in a large paddock. And we'll just watch them interact. And what happens when you first put horses together, the first thing that they do is they try to determine like a hierarchy. And they usually do it through violence and force, which is how they roll with that kind of stuff. But they don't really care who, like, for example, if the alpha beats the beta's not like, damn it, I wish I was the lead. Like, they don't care. They just want to know, so they'll like struggle to the top. And as soon as it's clear to them, which they have some sort of predetermined way to know when it's over, then they all put their head down, they start eating, and they just sort of do their thing. But while that's happening, I love to just stand with, people and say like, who do you think is the leader here? And see how they respond. Usually the CEO will say it's the biggest one, especially if the CEO is a guy, for example. A lot of times they'll see like the one that's most forceful is that's most violent, like while they're sorting things out, the one that's kicking ass the most. A lot of people will say that he's going to be the alpha, But what's very interesting and is often very well, so while that process is happening, people are talking about themselves and they're talking about their understanding of power dynamics and what creates a leader, even though they see it in this sort of like like uncivilized context. It almost, that one step removed, I think, is very helpful. So from that, a lot of times I'll just have like someone will say, that one's going to be the alpha. And then I'll see the person who is clearly not the alpha in the team and say like, who do you think is the alpha? And you start to see how everyone views things in this like very beautiful and complicated way. And then when I describe what it really is, like most people don't really notice that it's usually the mare. It's usually the older female horse that is the leader. And they lead not by, and this is just great for leadership stuff. They lead not by force, and they're not the ones that get out there and kick ass the most in the beginning. They're the ones that go and check in with everybody and just kind of see how they're doing. And that's what makes them the alpha. They actually, in nature, they choose where to go to graze. They're surrounded by the stallions that keep them safe, but they make the choices essentially.
It sounds like a very parental relationship, which you see happening in good C-suites and good leaders, right? There's almost that feeling of that parental bond, and they care about me. I feel that they can lead me and I can trust them. And it sounds like that's what's happening in that dynamic. And it's really interesting, because it sounds like, being an older mare, it's like a very motherly type of role they're undertaking, but that's who they are choosing to be the leader.
Well, that's a great point, because leadership is not ever taken. It must be bestowed upon by the followers. There's no other way to do it. Like even through force, even if like there's a conquering, autocrat of some sort, they have to first discourage everyone else from trying to take them out. So consent is. That's something else I'd really love to talk about. Consent is such an amazing thing in the herd dynamic. One more thing, I'd like to say that I saw one CEO that totally blew me away, and I was like, I don't think you need a lot of help from me. Because sometimes I'll just stand there in the group of horses and I'll be like, what do you guys think? Not really asking any questions, like just trying to get them to talk to each other. And this one CEO checked in with all his people to see what they thought. I was like, he's great, man. He's amazing. Like he cares about what these people are thinking, even in this context. Like he just wanted to, and it wasn't a strategy. He was just curious. So I think that was a really interesting thing. Consent is something I'd like to talk about a little bit, particularly with horses, because no one ever asks horses for consent. And I think there's a lot of I guess I could just say people who feel that way too. So I was working with this horse today, and I was working with it's called a flag. It's like a stick that has a triangular flag on the end, and it's made of nylon, and it's very flexible. And I use it oftentimes just to get horses used to something that they're unfamiliar with. And so when I presented this flag to this horse today, he was scared. You know, he like stood back and he didn't want to touch it and he didn't want to get anywhere near it. So I'm holding this flag, and the horse's nose is sort of like facing it. And I went to move the flag towards the horse, and the horse backed up. So I just stayed where I was. And this took probably half an hour. And I would just stand there. And oftentimes, if horses are really afraid, they'll be curious and they'll move forward. But sometimes when a horse has been like overtrained or has had some bad experiences, they'll kind of shut down. And this one, he kind of shut down a little bit. And so I just waited. I just stood there and I talked to him and I sang a little bit and I felt my heart chakra open. And at one point he just started to like put his nose towards it, and then I was able to slowly touch his nose with it and then his whole body, and what happened after that was he fell asleep. He kind of like leaned back and his eyes started drooping and he started twitching like this. So this is something that I find happens when horses are starting to develop trust. And there's a very interesting thing that happens when something goes from fearing something to thinking something is not safe to seeing that it's safe. Okay. So what's between safe and not safe has to be curiosity, So a lot of what I'm doing with horses and as a result with people is trying to find a way to trade fear for curiosity. And what I found I did that with this horse just with patience. I just really took my time and I touched him, and I have a lot of like sort of chakra exercises that I find to be very effective with horses. And the result of that is that they get very, very tired. I think horses, when they're around people, carry a lot of tension because they don't trust. And my experience is that when they've made that transition from not safe to safe, I've had on a number of occasions, a horse will fall asleep, lay down on the ground and start like twitching. And people who know more of the science of this than I do have suggested that they've sort of connected to their parasympathetic nervous system. And as a result of this like kind of release of endorphins from trust, that they're like offloading trauma. And that may or may not be true. I don't really know about their internal experience, what they're thinking. But what I do know is that when they stand up again, and it makes me emotional to think about this, and we interact, it's totally different. Like they're really soft, and they're like waiting to like hear what the next thing is. And they're and when I touch them, I can feel that they'll just sort of melt a little bit. So that comes from consent. That comes from waiting for them to tell me when it's okay, and I think that applies in so many situations, especially employment and power dynamics, where people just assume because there's an employment agreement that there is consent. And I don't think that's true, And I find that the horses are big, you can see they're big animals, but they're animals of prey, and we are the most efficient and vicious predators ever to have existed in the unit that we know of, So put us together and try to build trust, and you're going to see some stuff happen. You're going to feel some things for sure. And the horses are going to reflect that. Yeah.
And it's amazing to hear you speak about it with regards to that particular relationship, because it paints such a beautiful picture of what, when you were explaining this whole thing, and I immediately jumped to the thought about the parasympathetic nervous system, and then I just thought about a lot of the people that I see in modern times, and having that same sort of that demeanor that you describe in terms of holding a lot of tension in their bodies and being very cautious about progressing or asking or doing anything or interacting generally, right? And sort of in a round way. Like, I'm known here to the audience as the guy who always talks about Eastern philosophy. So I might like throw another sort of. It seems a bit far-fetched, but I can sort of see the correlation here, and I want to see like sort of hear your thoughts. So one of the things that I like to say is that help isn't an offer; it's a request. And similar the same way is that the Buddha says that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and I sort of see that correlation there in terms of there's a lot of people who I sense, may need some sort of assistance in breaking out of these certain molds and certain like guises, just because of like the myriad of conditioning and societal and cultural conditioning that we are subjected to, right? But there is a time when people just yearn for some sort of longing and help, and it is only, I guess, possible once it is a consensual thing, when one reaches out,
Yeah, I loved what you're saying. That's really cool, because it is. I heard someone say recently, like, it's not like to put yourself in a position where you feel like you can help someone already puts you above them.
Yeah.
But to think that, if someone asks for that, or if you're present in a certain way that can be supportive, that's a completely different thing. And the consent with horses seems to be, I don't know. So we're talking a lot about horses now, but I definitely feel that all this is a metaphor, like
Sure.
This works exactly the same way for people, the reason that I feel that my work with horses, I've never had a person fall asleep and lay down and start twitching, for example, because that would be, we would call the police. But I think horses are, to kind of get back to the point we're saying before, there's a certain like purity to them. Yeah. that I love, that comes as a result of their sort of cognitive incapacity to deceive. Like they can't do it. They just don't know it. Like, I think dogs can. I don't know if you're with your dog, if you've had that experience, but I think dogs can lie to you a little bit. I think dogs can kind of try to.
Yeah, I think so. He's a bit of a cheeky bugger. Yeah, I think so.
Right. Horses don't do that. Like they're just, they're really kind of very self-contained in that way. And if they're not afraid, you begin to see an actual personality develop, and in a way, like, I sort of feel like horses are like the ideal form of consciousness. They have this gigantic heart that beats in this like big slow way that sort of like hugs everything around them, and like draws them into this beautiful state, like, if you ever get a chance, like if you're driving down the road and there's a horse in a field, like just go stand by him. And I defy you to feel like shit. It's really hard, because they make you feel good.
Yeah. I mean, you describe it there. I mean, like they're sort of like you're sort of describing them as like a symbol of like the most pure form of consciousness that we can like relate to, I suppose, which is kind of what, when we come down to it, when it comes to, the work that humans do on themselves. It's really to get to a place of purity, right? It's a purification process,
I spent, there was a period of time where when the pandemic kind of started last year, where I was on a farm with 10 horses by myself every day for, it's like a few months. It was a few months. And it was amazing. I felt like I was like stranded on this like perfect desert island in a way, like I had like nobody to bother me. Like, I was able to focus like completely on just being present with horses. And at the same time, I was doing almost like, I had a little bit of help, but I was doing almost all the care. So I was also like a caregiver to them. And I felt very much in service. That was the phrase I was thinking before. It's rather than helping someone, like you're in service to them, and the horses, I had such a great experience of that with them. it had been a long time since I'd been like like feeding and, what I call equine fecal engineering, like doing all the basic care stuff. And it felt so beautiful. I just felt like I was there for them in every way. Even when I was training them, it was just, I felt like, it sounds weird, but I felt like a monk. I felt like a devotee. Like I was just devoted to this one thing, and every day I repeated this kind of prayer in a way. Like standing in the ring with a horse is like a meditation for me, and I felt how they make me come alive. And I think what Anima Equine is trying to do is share that. It's like share how I have come alive from this, and share how like horses are, sort of like telling me every day, like they've got the answer, like if you've got a problem, they can probably help you out. I haven't seen it go otherwise. Like I haven't seen a problem that a horse can't make better, just through the presence and through example,
It's really interesting, because what I'm sensing is that it's always a two-way benefit when dealing, and I wonder if people really think about that. And it's interesting, you made that distinction between, when you offer someone help, you're automatically putting yourself above them. And then you mentioned the distinction of being in service, but it's kind of like you're in service to each other. And I really
love that.
Yeah. I don't know if a lot of us think about that, when we're trying to be in service, of how it's actually serving us in return.
And that to me is like, I might just be too selfish to do it otherwise, you know what I mean?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like if it was like, it's got to be for me, honestly, like even the first time that I was working with horses, like one of the most beautiful things that I experienced was how I felt about it, So, like, I think, I mean, I love, and the reciprocity is just the nature of things. It's the nature of cause and effect, so I think it's always happening. It might just be whether you recognize it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's funny. I mean, Shaun and I were actually talking about this topic the other day about service, and we were just debating, the selfish or selfless nature of it. And it's sort of like, they sort of inform each other in my mind, Like for me,
Right.
it's somewhat like, from an experiential standpoint, it's selfish. But that in itself is like, sort of like more of the, in my mind, like the compass or the true north to continue to serve, Like
That's a great way to think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I really love the way that you sort of described this this state when you were taking care of those 10 horses, and like you were like a devotee, and like sort of it immediately brought me back to like an experience of my own, when I spent some time in Japan, like living in this remote fishing village, and I lived with a Zen Buddhist monk, and just lived like the Zen Buddhist life. And the experience that you described, it sort of perfectly captured everything that I myself sort of experienced there, in that it was very simple. It was a very simple life of pure devotion and service to whatever it is that we were there for. And it was getting up at the same time, it was meditating at the same time, doing work in the garden and around the property at the same time, having meals together at the same time, and then going to bed at the same time. And there was nothing much more to it than that. But,
Right.
Outside of just describing those, pure surface level experiences, it was the most like profound and enlightening, experience I've ever had in my life. And just having those simple things, like, and you think about whether you can pick those surface experiences up and place them anywhere and see whether you can, feel the same level of depth and nuance and wonder and awe. But I think that that's all part of it, right?
I'm so curious about what you just said. Like, what for you made it so profound?
You know what? It's funny. Like, firstly, the reason why I wanted to, I chose that particular place. So, you know, I could have chose anywhere in Japan, but I chose somewhere remote. You know, that was key for me because, you know, the environment was important. You know, I was trying to remove myself from a busy metropolitan environment. You know, and that was one of the main factors. And you immediately feel that the shift once you just physically place yourself in a different space. And that was one of the big things. But at the start, the whole time I was just I was like willing or just like asking the Zen Buddhist monk, like, you know, teach me, lecture me, teach me all your wisdom, you know, bestow me all the things that you've learned and show me the way of Zen. And he wouldn't. He was just like, oh, maybe later, maybe later, maybe later, you know. We're just gonna wake up at 4:30 every morning. We're gonna meditate for 3 hours. Then we're gonna have some tea. Then we're gonna go and do some work, pull some weeds, have some lunch, and then again, you know, finish our evening meal, meditate before we go to bed, and that's it. And that repeated day on day until I realized, you know, I was just observing him, and I was just like, that's really it. You know, he was living completely and utterly in the moment. You know, he didn't even think of like what his next step was going to be, let alone, you know, what we're going to have for dinner or anything like this, right? And just that immersion in that like type of energy, it just opened everything up for me. Like, it happened when I was pulling weeds, of all things, you know. I was pulling weeds, and then I was like seventh day in a row, and I'm like, holy shit, this is it. This is Zen right here. I'm in it. And that was it. It was as simple as that. There's nothing like profound, like or groundbreaking from it. But, you know, everything was within that moment.
That's beautiful. And that I think I can identify with that experience with horses in a very similar way, in the sense that like sometimes it's just, I'm supposed to be a horse trainer, right? And like I've as you heard from my bio, you know, I used to compete professionally, and I train people to compete professionally, and it's a very intense environment. And sometimes I'll bring those people in, and I'll just it's kind of, I used to only do it behind the barn because I was embarrassed. But I'll just stand there, and there's a few spots on a horse, and it depends on the horse. They're a bit. I can point it to this horse right here. This spot right here is actually a chakra that is only on horses.
Okay.
That is about connection. So I read this somewhere, and I was like, that sounds like bullshit to me. So I tried it, and it really works. So I'll be standing like with my chest against the shoulder and like my hand under their neck, and I'll just be like petting that spot. And they just paid me a lot of money, you know, and people are like, what are you doing? You know, like hug my horse on your own time. But that's what the training is. Like, that's what works. And like a lot of times I'll say, you know, I'm a professional pony petter, because it's like, I felt that with that horse today. Like he had a thing, and it was as though I was with him, and I'm saying, like, I see you have a thing. Like, I know you have a thing. It's okay. You can let go of that thing. I didn't know what the thing was, but it probably had to do with people that put it there, you know, because people use violence against animals and other people in ways that animals definitely don't understand. Yeah, I mean, it's a very profound thing to have happen.
And one thing I want to ask you, leading on from that, is, so I actually heard this saying yesterday that your experience just now reminded me of, and it's like, you don't pay the plumber to bang on the pipes, you pay them to know where to bang. Right?
Like,
so it sounds like that's what you're doing there, right? People are like, hug your horse. I'm like, give me your own time, man. Whereas it's like, that's exactly what is required. Like, you know, the part to, you know, like the plumber, you know where to bang, you know exactly what's required.
Do you guys want to know what my real dream is here? Do you want to hear what my real dream is here?
Of course.
So what I really want to do is I want to like infiltrate the industry that I left. I hope no one is listening here, but what I want to do, I left the competitive world because I thought it was contrary to what I love about people and horses, and I'm actually trying to do this now. I'm talking to some people. I want to get back into the show world and like maybe teach a couple lessons like a normal trainer, and then start doing the other stuff. And just be like, just watch. Just like, if you don't like it, we'll never do it again, kind of thing. But I think it has the potential to change the way that people connect to horses. I mean, in a way, like I don't know if I sort of hope that it dismantles the whole industry, or if I hope it just like changes it enough that, people can really see what horses give you, not just what you get from them.
And it sounds like a more holistic approach, right? But like, you need a way to kind of infiltrate into that world, like you were saying. So, Les and I talk about this a lot. And, one of his really good friends who's become a friend of mine too, his name's Steve Brophy. He talks about it like it's the Trojan horse approach.
Exactly.
An educator. And, he does educate executives and people in that setting as well. And he's like, you go to them with everything about performance and efficiencies, and then you get them all in the room and on the page. And then you're like, but have you thought about this? Or maybe you, and apparently it's incredibly effective, right?
I would imagine, because I think it's what people want anyways, like I've been in my sort of decade away from the horses. When I was in the corporate world as a director of content, we're creating content strategies, we're trying to find ways to like, connect with people and like sell. We're selling, that's what we do with content. And sometimes people know exactly what they want, and it might be what you have to sell, so you can give it to them. But sometimes people don't know exactly what they want, and you might just kind of guess that you know a little better, and then you can offer it to them. They still may not want it, but I think any work in the health and wellness field encounters that often, where people may really struggle to be open enough to change. It's like a very difficult thing to do. But so a lot of I was recently trained in doing family constellations. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that process, but it's a really interesting process to help. It's a somatic approach to healing past trauma. And to get people to start like feeling into their trauma, it's not an easy thing. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience, either, working with people or having, working in some sort of modality. But sometimes it requires like a little, like you have to kind of trick them into it. It's sort of like what you're saying. You have to kind of say like, hey, like, what about this? And like, how does that relate to this? Using like an inductive thing that way can be really effective. And I think that might be my approach to the horse industry. I don't think they know they need me yet, but they need me.
Sounds like they could benefit a lot. And
I hope so. I hope so. That's the dream.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, there's a lot of people who directly do want it and ask for it, but it's a different thing to.
And I guess it's kind of like you would know because you were in that world for so long and you experienced a lot of things. It sounds like that you didn't like, right? And you have this connection with the horses, and it's very apparent that you can feel how they feel. Right. And essentially the horse industry and the horse business does not exist without horses. So you'd want them to feel as best as they could feel. I would imagine it just makes sense all around.
Right. I mean, I would think that, I don't know, I do believe that current circumstances, politically and culturally, are really going to lend themselves to people wanting to do this kind of stuff more. I think that with people being so isolated, that people are really going to want to understand connection more, and horses have, I don't know, they just have so much to offer us in regards to what you need to kind of let go of in order to be open. Like what's holding you closed, like what's keeping you in that flinch, maybe it's just awareness that you're in a flinch. Maybe that's all. And maybe being around a horse that's just like chilling and eating grass reminds you of that, maybe that's all it takes. We've done a lot of work just meditating with horses, just standing around them or sitting in a chair. And oftentimes we've had like a group of people sitting in chairs in a field of grass around horses, and the horses will gather around and they'll just lay down and just like pass it. Like it has this like mutual symbiotic kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to make the horse business more exciting. I hope, you know, it's going to give people more options of how to communicate.
Yeah. And I think it just sounds like that. It's potentially it's just like an example for me. Like the way that I see it is just like that there are many modalities to healing and repair, and in all senses, whether it's like a personal sense, whether it's a societal sense, whether it's within industries or whatnot. Like it's just a recognition that, you know, something needs to shift a little bit, you know, through our learning and through our own lived experience. And there are certain like new findings, I suppose, or like experiences that others have had and modalities that people use to then, you know, then apply and adapt to what has been seen for so long as a solid benchmark framework or whatever it is, to then simply it's the process of evolution, essentially, right? In all senses of the word. And I think that it's just a very, to me, like the first time I've heard of it, to be honest, like, you know, a very unique way of utilizing an animal such as a horse to assist in a healing process on so many different levels. So I think it's a wonderful thing.
It can be a very profound thing. Oftentimes, people put so much meaning into horses that I've had experiences where people who've not been around horses, I'll just say like, just come put your hand on this horse, you know, and they'll just start crying, you know, they just feel that, how simple they are, you know, I think in a lot of ways. And that can be very healing. I think there's something about horses that let people let their guard down, you know, as well. I think, you know, there's like mythical connections. There's like every teenage girl wants a horse at some point in their lives, you know. So there's all these sort of like, you know, primitive things that people already have in their soul that are like, they're ready to be capitalized when they start being around horses. But there's also, one of the things, so we talked a little bit about how we are these amazing predators and these horses are these very fragile animals of prey. And that in order to build trust between two natural enemies, a lot is going to have to be transcended. And guess what? The horse is not going to change. You know, like the horse has no need to change. A lot of the work that I do is just a person and a horse in a round pen that's about 60 feet in diameter. And a lot of that work happens just when, like what I'll do with, one of the first things I'll do with a client is I'll say, okay, so let's, you know, put you in the ring with this horse, and I want you to see if you can get this horse to follow you, you know. And that's such an interesting thing, you know, and I will give them no indications. I'll be like, well, can I do this? I'll be like, just don't hurt the horse. Like, don't scare him, don't hurt, you know, like you can do anything else. And people, you know, they'll like grab the mane and try to like drag the 1,200-pound horse, you know, and all these approaches that people take to getting a horse to follow them are exactly how they do life, you know. And it usually points to some sort of power dynamic that is unbalanced. So the cool thing about the power dynamic between horses and people is that it is grotesquely unbalanced, but not in the way that it appears. So it appears in a physical way that the horse has the advantage, but obviously that's clearly not the case, you know. So a lot of times people are afraid of horses. So then that changes the dynamic back again, you know. So then you've got all these different ways of approaching stuff, you know. Do you you know, get behind the horse and push, you know? Do you try to chase it, you know? Do you I had this one guy who he's a filmmaker, but I wish he was a CEO. He looked at the horse, he petted the horse in the face, and he's like, where I'm going is going to be really fun. And he just started walking and the horse followed him, you know, because he had like a good feeling in his body, you know, and I thought it was brilliant, you know, so smart. So it's just being around horses is so revealing that sometimes, you know, in that sense, I feel my job is easy because I'll be like, here's a person with a problem, put them in front of a horse, ask them to interact in some way, and it's all going to be revealed pretty early on. It's going to come out. And then when you start working with horses over years, and horses become sort of like the result of you, like it's like a child, like your child is an effect of you, so when you say my kid's an asshole, oh, well,
yeah.
So are you, so so like there's so much reflection, like Leslie, when you say about the mirror, there's so much reflective qualities, and it's because they're so pure that it's like a like a lake, if there's wind and the surface is rippled, you don't really see much. You might see something, but horses are very calm, so you see a lot.
That's something I really want to ask you about, and you've answered it in so many ways. Is that, I've heard that horses are essentially barometers, like for humans. Mm-hmm. They reveal things about us, right? So, and it sounds like that's your experience. What's people's reactions when that happens? Like, how do people respond to that when it's something confronting for them? Or I think a lot of us have an idea about who we are or how we are, but you're mentioning the purity of the horse, and they're just going to reflect what's actually there. But you might not like that. Does that happen? And what's that like?
That happens a lot, and I mean, on both sides, it happens a lot. It happens a lot where people will see. I was working with someone who actually is a health and wellness practitioner who's pretty well known, and they're incredible. This person is so charismatic, and they were in the ring with a horse, and the horse was not engaging. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like watching this person, is like, they must not be, being fully present and authentic. And I was watching them, and I was like, oh, and I kind of like refiled my whole understanding of this person in a way, a little bit. And it was in a group. So I took them aside and I said, like, do you mind, can I give you some feedback? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I said, are you able to see the difference between, when when somebody likes you versus when somebody sees the authentic you? And it didn't go over well. I'm not gonna lie, it didn't land well,
Yeah.
I don't think this person was, it wasn't ready, or I said it in the wrong way or whatever. Like, I'm sure I could have put it across better.
I imagine it was confronting, like, to hear something like that.
Yeah, a little bit. I guess maybe I was, and I wanted to, because I really like this person a lot, and they are around a lot of people and can really help a lot of people, So I was like, I think you can go deeper with this, from what I saw. But so sometimes it doesn't go over well. Sometimes those same kinds of bits of feedback can be like, just you see the release, like you can begin to see the shift in people, and there's often like a big emotional release. Sometimes it's more subtle, but it's like my mentor for constellations said, you'll see movement, you'll feel movement, and when there's movement, there's change, and when there's change, there's healing. In this context.
Yeah.
So my favorite moment is the moment where people, like, for example, they'll change their internal state and they see the horse change. Or they're able to achieve something that they've been practicing and haven't gotten to yet. That's just such a beautiful, I mean, this happened to me so many times. I just want to see other people have that. I think if everyone spent more time with horses, the world would be a better place. Yeah,
totally. And like, just speaking to you and spending this time, listening to you speak about horses, it really piqued my curiosity. Like, to be frank, like, I haven't interacted much with horses. I've ridden them a couple of times, and to be really honest, they scared the shit out of me, when I was riding them. And what I really have taken from today, from anything else, in the very general sense, is that the horses can teach us so much about what we, or who we could be. From a very general sense, with these two sort of pillars of simplicity and purity, and what a beautiful thing to sort of look into and reflect and just like really, like, it's almost like a checking point. Am I straying from the path of simplicity and purity as the foundation of where, the direction of life sort of faces, and like how can we take example from the horses like that in that way continually?
Well, that's a great point. And Shaun, you mentioned something about the transitions in life, and I think the horses have always guided that, and how they've sort of brought me back or, healed me in certain ways. I think this is something I wanted to say when you were talking to. I just wanted to mention when you're talking about being afraid of horses, you should respect that fear. By the way, horses will fuck you up. They'll definitely hurt you, and you have to be very careful around them. I just say this for the viewing audience, not so you don't just jump out in front of the next horse that you see. Most horses are very, very kind and gentle and want nothing but, good stuff. But conversely, most horses have had very bad experiences with people. And as a result, many times the first interactions that I have with a horse in that round pen are me dodging out of the way of teeth and hooves, because if they feel threatened, the first thing they want to do is run away. But if they're in a round pen and they can't do that, they'll come after me. So, I've broken a ton of bones and stuff like that. But I'm 52, but I'm still pretty fast. So I haven't been hurt in a while. I'm lucky that way. But it's like, while that's happening, this is a bit of a digression, but like while that's happening, what I find, I've learned a really cool skill. And that's how to love something that's trying to kill you, and like, it doesn't come up in other contexts, really. I'm happy to say, but it does a lot in many contexts, because like in a corporate situation, like, I don't know if you guys have ever had the misfortune of having like a real job, but if you're sitting in a meeting and let's say your proposal is shot down, it feels like someone's coming after you with hooves and teeth. So how do you work with that? How do you deal with that? And what I, having experienced both that corporate world and the horse world, like, what I found is that when the horse comes after you, it's because they are deeply troubled. They're deeply troubled and they're really in a lot of pain, and all they want to do is be safe. And I can change that dynamic by consistently showing that I am safe, that I'm not, I'm not ever going to retaliate, because that's what they're accustomed to, especially with people. And I found that works really good in meetings. It works really good in meetings. There's a lot of that sort of that ability to, like, if you're reacting in a way that would be normal in your instincts, it can create some very destructive dynamics. And especially if you're on the lower end of the power dynamic, it can go quite badly. Whereas if you can remain neutral and kind of see the person, or in this case, like the horse underneath the fear, it can really alter dynamics in a corporate environment. So I love working with people on that kind of stuff as well, because it's just, these power dynamics are consistent throughout the human and animal kingdom. And I think, wow, what we've just seen in politics over the past few years has shown that, when people have power, they don't deal with it very well, and that's really in my opinion, the central problem. And I love the metaphor of horses and people, and that the sort of like incredible vulnerability on both sides, that needs to be treasured instead of used or manipulated in some way. It can really be like nurtured and treasured, valued.
Yeah, I think what you're describing there, like, to me, like what I've heard within all of that is like any sort of relationship dynamic, right? There's I think about like anyone who's in like an intimate relationship, there's always clashing of heads, just because you are trying to essentially meld two differing lives together onto the same sort of trajectory and route, which is like, in itself, you just think about that and it's near impossible. It's a very difficult process, and there's always going to be these twos and throws of like opinion, perspective, all these sorts of things, no matter what the dynamic is, whether it's, you know, in a corporate setting. You know, Shaun and I have been in, you know, lived the corporate lives for many, many years in our past lives, you know, whether it's like a relationship with like your parents, your brother or sister, right, any loved ones, you know, there's always that dynamic of you know, just meeting somewhere in between and just finding that mutual understanding, mutual safety, you know, sense of safety, because everyone underneath, like, you know, the guise of, you know, this happy face or this seeming confidence or whatever it is that we like to exude externally, we're all dealing with some shit underneath, right? It is just, and it affects how we respond, react, and you know, interact with people, whether we are, you know, acutely conscious of it or not. So I love that, you know, the horses will give you some really immediate and direct, you know, feedback essentially for this relationship dynamic that can teach us so much in any sort of dynamic of relationship.
I fully agree. And I think that's actually the best reason to be in a relationship. The best reason I think to be in a relationship, and I hope my girlfriend agrees with this, is to be challenged, you know, because if I think a lot of people expect comfort and validation and, you know, all the like sweet gooey things about relationships, but it's really, in my opinion, it's the best possible opportunity to stare your worst qualities in the face, you know. It's because they're gonna come out, like, you know, you're married, you know how that is, and that's beautiful. Like, as long as both people know that, you know, it's amazing, because then you can kind of say like, look, I trust you enough to give me feedback that this is going bad for you now, you know, or for me now, like you know, like she does not let me get away with stuff that I let me get away with, you know, and that's what you need, you know, and you need to find yourself in some weird fight and feeling confused and be like, this is not about you at all, you know, like this is about my past or whatever, you know, like, or even being able to hear that from someone else, to be able to be open enough to hear like, do you think this could be whatever, you know, is amazing. And so I feel the same with horses and people. Like, when you put horses and people together, it's the worst possible mismatch. You know, it's like a terrible, it's like you should break up with each other. This is a terrible relationship, you know, like this, you know, like one deals with all conflict through violence and might is right, and the other is entirely devoted to just like, you know, nurturing life and eating. You know, so when you put those two entities together that are so disparate, one of two things will happen. It's going to go really bad and there's going to be nothing but conflict, or there's going to be, like you say, there's going to be some desire for détente, you know, for some sort of mutuality.
Yeah.
And when you go to seek mutuality in the most like unmutual situations, you are forced to confront your essence, you know, who you, like the essential nature of who you are.
Yeah, 100%. I just think, look, that it's such a great way to, I guess, paint that dynamic and like that, I guess, that collective perception of what relationship is. And like, you know, it's mostly going to be portrayed in a romantic or intimate sense, is that, you know, once you get married and tie down this person, then you can let loose, you can put on that you know, that married weight and not care about anything anymore, and it's all over and sorted. But like you said, it's like there's two ways that it can go. You either grow together or you grow apart, right? And that doesn't necessarily have to be in a physical sense. You can still be in a quote unquote marriage and live under the same roof, but have like zero connection because you haven't done the work to grow together as two individuals trying to coexist under the same, like, you know, I guess, rules and understanding and principles and values that, you know, everyone is going to have their own opinion about everything. And that is just the nature of, you know, existence. So yeah, I mean, right. It's like I said, it always comes back to the fact that these horses just seem to have like a wonderful way of teaching us such valuable lessons about how to live life.
They're so gentle about it. They're so gentle about it. Because it's sort of like they just like wander off if you're not doing it, you know. It's like they just don't pay attention. It is really it's you were saying something about evolution before, and I wanted to sort of touch on that, because I think it's really interesting that I believe I don't know if it's like a purpose or like a destiny or whatever like that, but I do believe that horses are capable of evolving humans to the next step. And I think it's really interesting because like we've domesticated them, and we, you know, like without horses, most of civilization would not have been built, from, you know, like labor to battle and all that kind of, you know, horses really built this world in a lot of ways. And it have been, you know, beasts of burden that we have, I don't know how many millions of horses died in World War II, for example. Like, you know, there was almost none left after the war. They had to start breeding programs all over again. So they're very expendable. Like the life of a horse is cheap, you know. But now, like that same literal life force of their beating hearts, you know, in proximity to the beating hearts of people, can just like nudge us a little bit closer to that sort of purity of intent, to the simplicity of worldview, I don't know, man. I think this may be a projection, but the intensity of love, you know, like, because when I'm around horses, I just feel a lot of it. Maybe it's just for me, but it works for me either way, you know?
Well, the big heart's got to be there for something, right?
You know, even just biologically, you know,
Yeah.
these things, like nothing's there by accident is the way that I see it. Maybe beauty is to give us enthusiasm for living, and horses are to show us how to be open-hearted.
Yeah.
And even in the you know, you're saying the best part about a relationship is being challenged, right?
Mhm.
There's like, when you think about that, there's care in the challenge, because it's different to challenge your partner or someone that you're interacting with, as opposed to trying to get them to change something because you want it to be that way.
Oh, that's a tricky one right there, though.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know? You know, it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. But when it does come from a place of sincerity, and you're being challenged by your partner to improve just for the improvement's sake, because they can see something in you, and they're able to hold up a mirror and then kind of identify some traits or some behaviors and things. There's real care in that, right? And it kind of mirrors what you're saying about the horses. It's like they don't have a motive other than to just exchange their energy, and they're showing you what it is, right? And that's care. That's real care.
I think that's true. And when I'm like personally, part of my journey in my relationship now is to know that in the moment, because in the moment it feels like death to me. It's like so hard. Like, you know, I love feedback, and I seek it at every turn, and it always feels like shit. So and then I got to process it and work through it, and then I'm really grateful. But it's hard, you know. Like you have to want to like you know, sort of dig, like it, being in a relationship require, like, love is so that you put up with the bullshit and the hard stuff. Like that feeling of love, like that beautiful feeling of love is like, is what sort of gets you to the next stage when you're going through the actual growth part, I think.
Yes, for sure. I think like our
I know
souls are aligning on that one for sure, because I'm the same, you know, I love feedback, but every time you get it, it's not something that you want, it's not how you want to be, right? Shit, it cuts deep. But then after, you're like, fuck, I'm so glad you shared that with me. Yeah.
It's that whole idea of the shadow that, you know, was recently introduced to me, and I'm like, wow, that's so true. Everything has that. Like everything has that. And, you know, you as a person, when you're going through the deeper levels of growth to really try to clear stuff out, like you have to look at that, you know, you have to be, and, you know, I'm in therapy and all that stuff. And last year there was a period where the person I was working with was just throwing down, and I was like, oh my God, this is me, you know? And then like it worked when I was able to say, this is me, but I want to be better, you know, like it's not like this is unchangeable. This is not an immovable object. This is an opportunity, you know? But before you get to that point, oh my God, when you look at yourself in that way. And I think in order for horses don't have any darkness. Horses don't have a dark side until people put it there. So when you can kind of clear it out, there's this like shining gem in front of you, you know. But the process for horses, just like with people, you have to confront those, you know, you have to confront the part of that horse that has been taught to attack you, because if you get too close, they know they're going to get hurt. So, you know, they go through the exact same process. And you kind of have to be in a position where you can say like, yeah, you know, I've been there, man. I've totally been there. Like, I get it. Like, you have every right to want to kill me right now, you know? So just, you know, fingers crossed, you know, like I've been pretty lucky, but, you know, really, like, everyone's always working that out. Leslie, you said something about you never really know what people are going through, and you don't, but you know they're going through it. You know they're going through something. Maybe not in this moment because they forgot, but you know it's there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it might be a nice little place for us to, you know, round off this beautiful conversation. But you know, if anything, like, you know, this has been enlightening for myself, you know, in terms of how I see these beautiful creatures that you know, that again hold pillars of simplicity and purity. And if nothing else, if we can leave anything with the audience, it would be to be more like a horse. You know, that's the maybe the mantra that comes out of this particular discussion is be more like a horse. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. It was an absolute pleasure. I'd love for you to share with the audience where they could, you know, find out more about you, how they can get in touch with yourself, and you know, find out more about what you do with the wonderful work you do with horses and people.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, check out animaequine.com. It's my website, and it's got everything that you need to know. Through that, you can contact me personally for, you know, discovery call, or just to say hi, or, you know, like tell me you like my hair or something like that, whatever you want to say. And nowadays, I don't think it's on the website, but I'm getting into these systems constellations, which are really deep and profound, that can be from something as simple as just a choice point to really uncovering, you know, ancestral trauma. And I really love that work. I find it's very profound in a way that that we can do nowadays by remote. And I really love that. So yeah, so check me out at animaequine.com. And you can email me from there. There's all kinds of things coming up in the future that I would love to share with you guys when they start happening, including my Trojan horse style of infiltration, infiltrating of the horse business. Stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely put all the links into the show notes so people can find you easily. Shaun, where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, easiest place to find me is on Instagram. So it's just Shaun_Coop. So it's SHAUN_COOP. And people can also find us, Les, at true_north.co there on Instagram as well. You can see what we're doing there and interact with us. And how about you, Les? Where can they find you?
You can always find me on my website, findingspace.co. All my latest programs and all my latest business is going to be on there. So if you want to get in touch, findingspace.co. And also Instagram and Facebook, it is the same handle at findingspace.co. And
Dan, I just want to thank you as well for joining us today. I really enjoyed this time we spent with you. Yeah, it's just been awesome, man. And we could have kept talking for hours and hours and hours about absolutely anything, you know. It just happened to be that we were talking about your work with horses, and I've learned so much as well, and it's really piqued my curiosity. And yeah, man, I just really want to commend you on being this bridge of this beautiful interface between horses and people. It's amazing, and I wish you all the success in the world with infiltrating with your Trojan horse approach into that world, because it's only going to be good and benefit a lot of people, I feel, and also benefit the horses, which I know you care deeply about. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You guys are the coolest. This is so much fun. I regret that I can't do this all the time. That's my that's the sad thing. I'll have to do something else interesting so you can get me back on in the future.
No, we'll definitely have to get you back on, mate. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That would be fun. Thank you so much, guys. I love what you guys are doing. You know, the podcast is great. listened to a ton of episodes. I think it's cool that you're getting these people with these like really interesting, approaches to life and business out there. I think it's a great purpose.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And, people that are listening, if you took some nuggets from this conversation, which you undeniably did, please just share it with one other person. That's how we grow the podcast. And until next time, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you so much. Good night.